a sales development program without the development. All right, so clearly I didn't necessarily have the best experience based off that line, but I want to keep it real with you, all right? Thank you to everyone who just reached out over LinkedIn and just the support on the AT&T internship video. I think that's like the most views and likes and comments and everything, basically most engagement one of my videos has gotten. So you don't have to check that out. I'll link it on the screen either way. There might be some stuff that I missed and stuff like that, but I'm going to do like a comprehensive combined experience video in this one. For many of you that are in the process, don't hesitate to reach out to me like on literally anything that I have linked in the description below. I'm happy to help or do a call or whatever, because I want to make sure everybody starts their career off right. I was one of the many folks that didn't necessarily have the best experience with AT&T, but don't stop watching now. There are some really good things that might resonate with you. It really depends on your personality and you as a person. I want to break this down into like my story, just overall story, just in positives and negatives, and then just like a conclusion, final verdict as to whether you should join. So whether you're applying to the internship version of the B2B sales development program or the full-time role, they're virtually the same thing. The internship's just shorter and probably no quota. They might have a quota now, but it's like super small and doesn't really impact anything. I interned with AT&T in person in Irving/Dallas in 2019. It was like a 10-week internship. Came back full-time in the summer of 2020, right after I graduated. It started in July, and then I left in October. You're like, Mohit, holy shit, you left so fast. We're going to break that down. We're going to get to what I saw, what I observed, what other people have observed, and what could have convinced me to stay in too, right? Because this is by no means, like, I don't bash any company. I think that anyone should be fortunate to have a job no matter who they're working for, as long as they're not crazy and there's like there's no weird harassment stuff going on, which I actually did experience a little bit in the internship, but that's not AT&T's fault. I was remote when I returned, so full-time remote, although the program was very, very similar regardless. For those of you who actually don't know anything about the program that might have just found this video, quick overview. This program overall is a B2B, like it says, your business-to-business selling. So you're doing cold calls. My recruiter told me this. Apparently, some of the recruiters didn't. From other people that were in my incoming class, we were all coming in and recruited as classes. They told me that the recruiters didn't tell them this was a cold calling role, that there was any cold calling or at all. So that was a little weird. There might be some information held from you, so I hope this video kind of helps to shine a light on how things work. But it's very much a cold calling role. This is a cutthroat sales position. I want to make this clear. It says sales development program. There's a lot of misconceptions with this. This is a full-time role. This is a cutthroat sales position from the get-go. This isn't, there's training, but it's like very, very limited. You were on a quota. We'll get into that in a second. And you were calling, you're making money. Like this is sales, pure sales, exactly what you think it is. If they didn't tell you this, I want to make sure it's marketed properly for those that haven't received the right information. That's what the program is. You're spending 40 hours a week, probably more, selling. You're on the phone during normal business hours. Standard benefits. It's a full-time job from the get-go. It's just you're part of a different segment. It's a training development segment, right? And then they figure out what you're best at selling, and then they place you in an actual selling role, which is basically the same thing, over like on what you're good at. So whether that's mobility or like cybersecurity, fiber internet, just there are different products and services. As well as like IoT, which is just Internet of Thing devices, those little SIM cards they put on trucks and all this fleet, all this stuff. There's so much that AT&T does. That's what I like about them. There's so many options. And you find out what you're good at, right? You find out what you excel at selling, and you get placed into a role specifically for that. Some people, they manage like a certain territory after that. Some people might try to expand current customers. It's all different, it depends. Everything depends. I didn't get that far, so like for me, I actually don't have information on that, but I can definitely refer you to people that have and that are even still in it. With that in mind, that's the brief overview of the entire role. I want to keep it real with all of my videos and just get like with any of these company like reviews and stuff like that I do, just really making sure I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, the fair assessment that you guys need to make an informed decision as to whether this is right for you, because this is not like a negative experience by any means, but it was a learning experience. There's things that aren't necessarily told to you from the get-go, And I think everybody, deserves to know, because time is money, and I'm sure everybody's getting tired of just doing countless interviews just to get stuck at a role that isn't what you thought it was. That's the worst thing that can happen to somebody. Let's start with the positives. I have a lot of positives, actually. Just very, very positive recruitment process for myself. Even if the people withhold information from you, I guess those people had a great process as well. All the recruiters are great people. Like, I remember in the Irving office, you'd see them in the office too sometimes, either at the Dallas headquarters or the Irving office. You're transitioning between both. And I'm going to try to make sure I'm talking about everything as it would be in person. Even though I did go back remote full-time because of the pandemic and that you couldn't go in person, I'm almost certain that it's in person now. Trainers are great. Shout out to Tracy Goforth and Jared. You guys are fantastic. All the other trainers are awesome too, but just shout out. And then my recruiter, Kim Donovan. If you're watching this, thank you. You got me my first major internship after I switched majors in college. So ultimately, like, all the recruiters are amazing. Like, they're doing great work. I don't know why some are withholding info. I don't understand the story on that. But just be wary. But they're good people. They want to place you. They want to get you the job. They're on your side, right? And that's the thing with everybody at the company. Everyone wants you to succeed. So just moving on, outstanding facilities and stuff. In the internship, they definitely fluff things up a little bit, but just it goes to show you how much AT&T owns and has access to across all of Dallas, and just like, just the area, just the United States in general. So you had obviously AT&T Stadium. We had the amazing experience of just being in Dallas and Irving. As long as you have a car, it's a fantastic experience. I didn't have a car. But we all carpooled like to work and stuff, but you definitely want one for outside of work. Otherwise, those Ubers and everything, they get super costly. I used Uber more that summer than I ever have in my entire life. Maybe, honestly, now I'm probably getting pretty close, but back then, the most I've ever used Uber to go to like happy hours and stuff. But either way, just amazing city. There's so much to do. There's just, you get the free meals and housing. I'm pretty sure they still have that. With the full-time version of the role. Housing, I think there was like a very low monthly rent, and then with meals, you had 3 meals a day, except for I think weekends was it, and the meals were good. It's from Sodexo, so they partner with a lot of schools, and I know they range in a lot of quality. This is like the upper end of their quality. It's very good. You got chefs, they're doing good stuff. So many different options too. You have like fried food, you have healthy food. They have tons of other locations and facilities across the U.S., but in Dallas specifically, that are just essentially R&D. I'm not sure which facilities I'm allowed to talk about and say. Might have accidentally name dropped one in my previous video, but these were all things that were up and coming stuff at AT&T, like R&D. There's so many like different offices and things across Dallas. And you'll get to see all of these things and tour these things for sure. You got your volunteering days. We did ours with Feed My Starving Children. You have talks and town halls, constantly seeing, the vision and understanding and what's top of mind for AT&T at that particular moment and what they want you focusing on, and also recognition for sellers that are doing very, very well. And then great benefits too. Obviously it's a Fortune 10 company, so you're in good hands for your future if you stay there. Very great benefits package. I still to this day I really miss their. It was a AT&T TV offer that I got. Very, very well priced for employees. They give you the laptop, phone, and just your own equipment. So very good benefits, very good equipment for you. They make sure you're well prepared with all the physical stuff. And just outstanding facilities, outstanding city. You can't beat working with AT&T in Dallas just for those reasons alone. But salary is very good. What to expect? It was 50 grand. If I recall correctly, 21 or 23 grand in commission or something like that. So it was capped, unfortunately. I don't know if that holds true once you place into an actual role after the program, but it was capped. And there is one thing I wanted to explain about like a contract, but I will wait for the negative section to talk about that. That's not a positive. So the pay is pretty good, especially for right out of school job, entry level job. A lot of entry level jobs. Unfortunately, the way it is they don't pay us well enough, and it's not anybody's fault. Actually, it's everybody's fault. But if it's everybody's fault, then it's no one's fault. So ultimately, AT&T was at the higher end of that, and they give you some good money. The training, very, very good in terms of AT&T, their products and services, and just walking out, I feel like I understand a lot more about telecommunications in the industry and how it works, how it's founded, created, how the technology works. Things that I necessarily wouldn't, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think about. Even if you're not a huge tech geek like me, like you still learn a lot of things that are super valuable, even if you leave the company, just like day to day when you're even just considering your own ISP at home. So in terms of the selling stuff, you again, you can figure out what you're good at before placing, which I really like, the ability to figure out what you can excel at selling, so you can then sell that for like a year or two. In a specific market, certain zip code, something like that. You have a region, right, that you're kind of in charge of creating new business or expanding current business in. You have the freedom to essentially create your own talk track and talk to different target markets, so you can expand current business. You can your whole job is hitting quota in the program. Like, it doesn't matter how you get there. So it's you can expand current customers. You can create new customers. There's so many different products and services, again, that I mentioned earlier that you can really sell and talk about. Your job is really just making sure that you're talking to the right people, finding the right people, and I'll kind of expand on that in the negatives as to why it was hard to reach quota for many folks. You do have freedom. You have a lot of freedom, and sometimes that can be a bad thing for certain folks, but I know many folks that I knew also did appreciate that, because there's a lot of, there are sales roles out there that are very micromanaging. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it isn't. I think that there is a healthy balance in between, but AT&T is very hands-off. And a lot of the training they give you is specific to AT&T, not necessarily the selling side of things, and we'll get there in a second. So you'll start cold calling from week 2. You're pretty much thrust right in, which is great. That's a fantastic environment for just making sure that you're able to kind of practice different talk tracks and stuff. So you have great incentives for performing. So if you do very, very well, if you're hitting, exceeding quota, obviously you get your recognition on the town halls and stuff like that, and the weekly, monthly meetings and stuff. But you're also getting just very, very good benefits outside of your benefits package. So you're getting these are things like you could get cash bonuses. There's like President's Club, I believe it was called, but it was like you get like travel incentives, which is, you get to travel with some of the either the managers or like the VPs and the higher up folks. And just there's so many cool things. There's obviously like material things like backpacks and all this stuff. To like tie it up all in a bow, if you do very well at AT&T, you will be very well rewarded with your pay. I'm sure that goes up with just like the prestige. It's a Fortune 10 company, nice feather in your cap, of course. The last thing is just really, really great network, big team. My intern class was a class of 50. My full-time class was about 50 as well. Because you're with other people that are your age, just graduated college as well for the most part. Lots of different backgrounds all across the U.S. Obviously, a lot of them are from Texas universities and stuff. But you still have folks from other universities as well, and it's great camaraderie. If you're there in person, obviously go to happy hours, like stuff like that. There's just so many people to do things with, and since your age, go out and party and get some drinks and really just enjoy it, because these are people that you can really build your career with, and even if they leave AT&T, you can stay in contact with a lot of them and just learn so much in the process. Those are all the positives. I want to move on to the negative side, because there's definitely some stuff to be said. So this brings me to the big part. This is why I left, and frankly many people leave. So to start things off, ultimately the turnover sucks. It's super high, and that's honestly a lot of sales roles. I'm going to make a video talking about just like career in sales in general, but there's the program itself has a ton of turnover, and they don't tell you that. And it's tough, because it's tough to really blame the AT&T for it. You can't, and I'll kind of explain why. Calling and prospecting, as well as inbound calls. So you're like, Mohit, it's a sales role. Why is there inbound calls? It's basically customer service. Yes, you heard that right. Some of your job was customer service. This might have changed. Maybe some of our feedback helped. But ultimately, like when we were there, you're calling all day, and there's this, again, this is something that I wish they would have changed, and I hope they did by now, is just the training on prospecting. So calling is great. Look, I had a ton of like, I don't want to call it's like pretty much customer service. It was fundraising, all 4 years of college, super comfortable on the phone, cold calling, obviously comfortable on the camera. So like that wasn't the hard part. What to say wasn't the hard part. Script wasn't the hard part. Very enthusiastic, making those calls. Obviously, worth ethic, totally fine. What was hard is really just having the right conversations, like finding the right people to talk to and create business with. It really felt like a call center. Like it really felt like I was just calling random people. And I knew they weren't going to buy. I knew we weren't going to set a meeting. I knew nothing was going to happen. And the people that were doing well, they had their own system in place. They knew how to essentially find business. Like like you have to just like know it, and that is tough because it's like you can't teach that. Then it's like we needed to be taught. Like people need to know like who they're calling, why they're calling. It shouldn't like part of our job, yes, is to find the business, but then part of that also should be explained in the recruiting process. Like this is meant to be a development program, and that brings me to my next point. Where's the development part of the development program? Like that's the one thing that even during the internship, like I saw, and honestly, half the reason I went back is because everybody in college is just desperate to make sure they have a job after senior year. And especially if you were like me, you were burnt out, man. Like I switched my major halfway through college. I was taking 18 credit hours, which for us was the max, like every semester, and in one case more. And you're burnt out. You just want to make sure you have a job on the line. And for me, it was like, yes, like I should have taken more time to do research, but in the moment, I just wanted to go back. Like even though I had some gripes after the internship as well. This is a cutthroat sales role from the get-go. You get some training and great, but honestly, a lot of that time spent in training, a lot of those times that for whatever reason you had to spend half your day on inbound calls sometimes just to resolve some customers' complaints or like re-up their contract, which you don't get credit for unless you sell them something new, which in most cases is just not like that's not possible. It felt like we were getting a lot of work that wasn't meant for us, and the training is overly drawn out. And I make the joke that you're pretty much training for 2 months with a little bit of cold calling on the side, but that's what it was. And ultimately, like it's hard because you have quotas. You have quotas from like literally, I think month 1 there was a quota. There's quotas. They go up like crazy, and you're given very little resources to actually like just get there. Like beyond calling, again, there's no prospecting training. There's no training on like just like what to say, right? Some people appreciated that freedom. I was fine with that. Again, my issue was prospecting, but for other people, it was like what to say, how to get comfortable on cold calls, practicing stuff like that, and just figuring out what's working. There was very little development outside of just learning about AT&T and the telecommunications industry and the brand, and then a little bit of cold calling practice. But you really had to know how to sell if you wanted to do well. You had to learn either on the fly, which many people did, or you had to know or come from a place where you've already done this type of work so you can excel in the program from the get-go. I needed a little bit more help from the managers, and I don't blame any of them for this. It was just I had a very nice manager, but it was tough because it was just like there's only so much that he could help me because he's managing a team of like it was like 15 or 20 people, and we were bringing in new classes every single month, so an additional maybe 10 people that he had to manage, which was just tough because you can't only spend so much time with people. So if you need help learning how to do something, learning how to use certain like tool stacks, like there's no way to get that. When I said the quotas were increasing, again, if you don't have the skill to bridge that gap, you don't get the commission, which means your pay is only the salary at that point, which in some cases is not going to do it for a lot of people, especially when you have rent, you have bills, you have all these things to pay, right? College loans, I'm sure, like myself. And so when there is a lot of turnover, it doesn't necessarily help with morale. It is kind of tough because you see people leaving left and right every single week. I think from week 2 for us, somebody left. And it's tough because you see people leaving and you're like, man, like, it's like you probably only 5-10 people out of maybe 50 or 100 people when you start. And that really gets to you. I realized this after when I went to my next job, outreach. AT&T hasn't correctly utilized the tool stack in the way that they should have. How I know this is like not because of the role, like I didn't know any better in the role, but it's again, when I left, I went to other companies and I realized how they use the tool stack and how AT&T can do a much better job with it. I think having strategic reports and like utilizing, say, outreach and Salesforce integration and all this stuff in a successful manner can really change things. Even the tool stack training, just not super fleshed out. And when I was at the firm, I didn't really understand how to use the tool stack. It wasn't fully taught, and even when the way it was taught and the way we used it just was incorrect. These are a couple final things that I kind of wanted to touch on. There was something that this does trouble me a little bit, because I'm obviously someone of color. Like, I don't want to get like super into that. I know I'm not like super crazy about this stuff. But just for the people that are, I do want to say that, it's clear that every class that AT&T brings in, a majority are white males, white females as well, but just they are a ton of people that are part of Greek life in multiple universities across the country, which is totally fine. Like, a lot of my good friends have been or have associated with frat before, but ultimately, like, there's just a certain type of people that AT&T will recruit for this program, and it makes sense. It's sales. You want somebody that's super energetic, like super crazy, right? Like, you need people like that. But I saw the opposite at a company, say like at Outreach, and we did just as well with a super diverse group of people. So in terms of race, yes, for the people that care, it is very limited. And then personality type, very particular type of market that they attract, which is not a bad thing. But again, it just comes down to, okay, is this the type of like environment that you want to be in? I think that you should never discount people just because of like a certain background. But I think it is also important to have multiple backgrounds within even something like sales. Just because like a new seller like myself, who had no prior experience in something like that, doesn't necessarily have anybody to look at and say, hey, he made it, she made it, I know I can do it, just because you saw somebody in your shoes that looks like you or acts like you or talks like you, right? So that is one thing for the people that do care. It didn't bother me as much, but I noticed it right away just because of my background, so I have to bring that up. And I know that they're trying. It's just they're definitely at the lower end of that spectrum. They need a lot of work to really diversify their staff, and I hope it does get there, specifically in sales. Like we need that. One thing that many people that I when I catch up with them that are still in the program, that have placed or managing a certain zip code, they're doing their thing in their market. Apparently for some of these placements, or maybe all of them, you sign a contract where I believe it was like a couple grand, if I'm not mistaken, to actually leave. So you are forced into this role and you have to pay to quit. And it's not even just a small payment, it's like a couple thousand. And it's because of the training, I imagine. And I still question the idea of like what training besides AT&T and their products and services, but that's the reality of it. You're gonna have to pay to quit, which is really tough. Definitely, I have some people that you can reach out to that I don't know too much about it, but these people can explain it in a lot more detail on what it takes to leave the company if it doesn't end up being a right fit for you. So please figure it out if you're in the program before the program ends. Once you place, you're locked in for like 1 to 2 years contract. That's pretty much it overall. Some people I knew in some of the other upper segments like global and stuff also agreed with like it's just very hard to change the B2B program just because you have all these things in motion and so many shifts happening at any given time. It's tough to make the changes that they need in a fast manner. So I don't blame anybody there to begin with, because it's bigger than any one person. I wish I can just tell you, hey, we could fire this person, like you gotta change the CEO, things like that. But it has nothing to do with the management, it has nothing to do with the managers. It's purely just the way that the program is set up, and the way they're doing certain practices and things and the training and all this stuff that just doesn't set up everybody for success, and that's why the turnover is so high. So those are the negatives. Overall conclusion, I want to get here right at the end. So this is a combination of we went through some positives, went through some negatives. We really just broke this down, and again, I'm still very thankful that I got my start at AT&T. So let me just put it this way. When it comes to if you should join, it really depends. I hate saying that, but in this case, it's very true. If you have nothing else lined up, then yes, it's a great starting point. I just really wanted to not think about looking for a job during my senior year. A lot of people were like that. That's valid. That's totally fine. I did it. Take it. It's fine. Please know what you're getting into, and I hope this video helped. It's a great starting point, even if you don't stay. Again, nice feather in your cap. Fortune 10 company, very hireable immediately. Even if you leave, I left after a couple months. immediately got hired at Outreach. Do more research into other sales roles out there, just specifically differences between being an SDR, AE, closer, etc. At AT&T, you're a full cycle seller for the most part. Just consider other companies though if you are being serious about the search. Companies that have a well-defined program and structure like Outreach, and I'll be making a video on that as well. Companies that can really train you, especially if you need it, like myself, to be a very good seller without any experience, and not just an overpaid customer service rep or someone that needs to know what they're doing before they become part of what's labeled as a development program. Just remember, this is like the one and done answer I like to give everybody is passion is everything. You have to be passionate about what you're selling in any sales job. And for me, AT&T's products and services just weren't it. Especially after doing a lot of those customer service calls too, I really felt like we were in some cases screwing a lot of customers over, and it just felt really wrong. And I lost my passion after like 3 months with them. Just like I didn't like what I was doing. Not the sales portion of it, just the company. So just bear that in mind when you're looking for a sales role. Just make sure you actually care about the product, and also pay attention to what other programs are structured like. Don't just choose AT&T because it's prestigious, it's there, it's a big company, great benefits and stuff, unless, again, all power to you, you just want something, you'll figure it out later. I get that. I know everybody, some people are there, I was too. Feel free to do so, but if you are serious, take the time, do the research. There's more out there. This should be like one of your last resorts, which it is kind of painful to say. So anyways, y'all, that's the video. I still have to read the script because, I'm just coming back and there's so much people you have to say at the end of a video as a YouTuber, but leave some comments. Let me know what you think. Let's smash that like button, get this video trending higher than probably half my managers on Friday night. And please subscribe if even a fraction of my videos resonate with you. And, I'll see everybody in the next one. Peace out.